truly delighted to unpack this story with you, and it's a pleasure having this conversation.
Thank you. I look forward to sharing my stories.
You decided to take the Park Hotels public, right? One of the first women-led hospitality brand in India.
And that was like really trial by fire. Then I had begun to understand hospitality, because the hotels are very different creatures.
And how did you overcome some of those challenges, some of those self-doubts, and lead your way through this?
So actually that was never part of my plan. And my plan was to graduate and then look for a job. I did everything from sales calls to kind of learning about engineering and plumbing and things like that.
If you were to give that one piece of advice to the younger Priya when she started her career, what would that be?
Have more fun.
You don't have enough fun?
I do.
Welcome to yet another edition of the Table of Our Own podcast series, a podcast that is dedicated to women entrepreneurs who are extending themselves and setting new benchmarks of excellence and leadership. Joining me for this conversation is an iconic leader, the chairperson of APJ Surendra Park Hotel, Ms. Priya Paul. Priya, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Naveen.
They say that leadership is all about titles and milestones and accolades, but then there are those which are woven in quieter moments. Priya, you started off your career in the hospitality business in the early 20s, when most people were still finding their footing. And from there on, you built an iconic hospitality brand, which is so much about culture and creativity as it's about the business. I'm truly delighted to unpack this story with you, and it's a pleasure having this conversation.
Thank you. I look forward to sharing my stories.
So let me start with where it all began. Priya, you started your journey growing up in one of the most renowned business families in Kolkata. And therefore, to that extent, business and entrepreneurship was part of your DNA, was part of your daily life in an early age. So let's start with that early environment. How did that shape your worldview and ambitions at that point?
So you're right. Actually, we saw business and business life all the time, and the ups and downs. And we lived in a joint family with my uncle Jeet Paul, and of course my parents and four of us kids. So it was not that dinner time was part of business was not part of dinner time conversation, but certainly from the morning onwards, at 6:37 in the morning, we would share stories because my uncle and father would be reading newspapers and they'd maybe say something. And the weekends were when we actually, whether we visited the steel factory or visited one of the hotels, and that was part of our learning. So later, when we were older, my father always involved us and we'd throw out like some interesting um, idea or like a dilemma or ask us for our opinions. So I think we did see that and imbibe that. My mother also worked in Fleury's at that stage. So we had both examples of the father and mother working.
So again, moving forward, I mean, you got straight into the hospitality business straight out of college, right? And it was in your early 20s and you were entrusted with the responsibility for 3 hotels, as I understand, to begin with. I'm sure that would have been a daunting task at such a young age. Uh, Tell us a little bit about that experience. I mean, did that overwhelm you or did you feel underprepared at that point of time? And how did you overcome some of those challenges, some of those self-doubts, and lead your way through this?
So actually, that was never part of my plan. And I did economics at Wellesley College in the US.
right.
And my plan was to graduate and then look for a job and work a couple of years on Wall Street and then come back to work. I was always very clear that I wanted to work in the family business. I didn't know which part of the business to be in. And because we had interest in shipping, in steel, in education, and of course in hospitality and tea at that time, tea plantations. So I really didn't know which part of the business, but I knew I wanted to work elsewhere and come back into that. That didn't really work out because there was a stock market crash in 1987, so I didn't get a job. And my dad, I literally came back to drop my luggage off here and said, okay, fine, I'm going to go back to look for a job. He said, nothing doing, you're going to start work. And that was July 1st, 1988. At that time, I was assigned to work at the Park, New Delhi, as marketing manager. And I have to say, I didn't really have a conversation with my father about what the future plans would be and et cetera, et cetera. But certainly over the year or year and a half, I started taking more responsibility and learning from various things that were going on. And there was no general manager of the hotel. So I was very soon promoted to acting general manager. And I actually took over the three hotels when my father was killed. So it was, I don't know whether it was part of the plan or whatever it was, but so I started working in 88. In 90, he was killed. And overnight, I started looking at three hotels. And that was like really trial by fire. But I think I had had training directly under him. So I understood a lot of things and I had begun to understand hospitality, really the nuts and bolts of it, because it was a hotel that was brand new. It was 1990, 88, 99. The day I joined this hotel in the Park, New Delhi, the occupancy was 8 rooms. The hotel had opened about a year before that. So it was really learning by doing and understanding and learning from all the heads of departments. And because the hotels are very different creatures. And so I had that training, and I did everything from sales calls to kind of learning about engineering and plumbing and things like that. So it's really by asking questions and walking around.
It's a great trial by fire learning
Absolutely.
journey. So
Absolutely.
as you went through this leadership journey, and with every journey, there are setbacks, there are tough moments, tough episodes that one has to go through. So, how did you deal with some of those crises? Anything that you want to talk about that you want to reflect on?
No, the biggest crisis was this.
Yeah,
I think everything else pales in comparison to that. And in fact, when COVID happened,
yeah,
I said, "Oh my God, I've dealt with hotels that have, 8 rooms occupied." And also remember in that time in the 90s, that liberalization hadn't
yeah,
happened and
right,
that whole promise of India hadn't happened. So there was very little business coming into India, or even tourism for that matter, even in a vibrant city like
right,
New
right,
Delhi.
right,
So, the trial of fire was how do you build a hotel and how do you build occupancy, and that, let's say, that helped me in the COVID time. I think I was quite calm because I'd seen that before. I said, no, it doesn't matter. It'll happen again, and whenever it happens, it happens.
right.
So I think that helped, and then the personal strategy was a different situation, not just for me, but also my entire family. We all had to step up, learn how to cope and do things and manage.
If I was to reflect, I think one of the defining moments of your journey would be how you reinvented the Park Hotel, right? And I think that's seen a massive transformation. And from what was a traditional, conventional hospitality change, you made this one of the first design-led boutique hotel, and that was really a bold transformation. So, how did you break away from the mold and bring about such a big shift, and sort of really live that vision, bring that vision to life?
Yeah, that's an important part of the story. And I think I will go back to the 90s. So I just started getting into the business, and we had, at that time, just three hotels: Calcutta, which started in 1967, Vishakhapatnam, 1968, Andhra Pradesh's first five-star hotel, and New Delhi, which had opened in 87, a year before I joined. And at that stage, there was no plan to be, 50 hotels, almost 50 hotels that we are today. There was no grand plan like that. I was given that little portfolio. And as I said, overnight, I had to manage it. And actually, before my father had passed away, it already started a plan to renovate the Calcutta Hotel and the Vizag Hotel. And some work had already started. And being young, and I was maybe 23 or 24 at that stage, and not from a hospitality background and
Right,
education, I think that worked to my advantage. I think I could look at the whole business and look and say, okay, fine, I don't need to run these boring hotels. I have three properties. I'm doing this renovation. Um, I can do it in whichever way I want. And I wanted to, in those 90s, there was nothing really. If you wanted to go out and go to a restaurant or a bar, there was really nothing available in a city, very kind of legacy hotels, legacy restaurants, and you had clubs, right? There was no other space, right? So, and being young, it's like, "Well, I don't want this whole, kind of vibe of just, brass and marble and things like that." I'm a creative person.
yes,
And I think I brought that part into it and my whole idea. Certainly, I was influenced by Ian Schrager, in New York and all the exciting hotels that had just started there in New York. So I'd seen that. I said, hotels don't have to be this boring spaces. They can be fun, they can be vibrant, and let's make the hotels happening, interesting places in each of the cities that they are, which have interesting design and music and nightlife and fun spaces. So really looking at um, myself as a customer and maybe my generation of people. And I think we were very successful because at that time, that post 91 liberalization had happened, and people now suddenly had money to spend. They needed places to go to. And I think that's how we caught the imagination. And what I what I say now is like we actually looked at creating these hotels reflective of contemporary Indian culture, but using music, art, fashion, food, design to kind of recreate the spaces, create events, and make it very local, a very extreme local connect with people and things that were happening in the city. And
So,
we became the hub of the things
right.
happening.
So certainly your personal passions about art, creativity, and design found
Yeah.
its place in the hotels that you
Absolutely. And
trust.
that's what's been really
Right.
fantastic about it
Correct.
because you can constantly reinvent the spaces
Right.
for your customers as well as for ourselves.
Right. So now let's talk about how you build this brand and build this journey, and from where you started off with 3 hotels. Now I understand it's about 43, 45 hotels,
Yeah. And counting.
roughly roughly about 3,000 plus keys across 20 plus cities. So it's a phenomenal story, and likely to be 2x of that number in the next few years. So as you look ahead and you sort of build that journey, what will really define, what are the critical success factors that will define success going forward while keeping the identity and the uniqueness of the brand intact?
So I'm going to jump back a little bit because we created these 3 hotels and they started kind of making their mark in each of the cities, Delhi, Calcutta, and Vishakhapatnam. And we started getting, communicating the fact that we were a collection of boutique hotels and why we did things differently and what we did. So we started adding properties in Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Goa, and creating this whole collection of luxury boutique hotels. And then along the way, we decided to really redefine our whole brand architecture and create multiple brands. So we have the park hotels, which are these big city center, uh, really bells and whistles, fun, vibrant hotels. They're typically large, 150 to 250 rooms is the size. Then we have something called the Park Collection, which are 20 to 40 room boutique properties, which I like to say that they are heritage properties, but they're also in unique spaces and places and offer a different type of experience. Each one is different and very strong on design and art also. Then in the mid 2000s, we looked at really how the India was expanding and this whole aspirational tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and we created a brand called Zone by the Park. We now have 26 hotels under that brand and about 10 or 12 adding in the next few years in that brand. So those are again an asset light strategy, and Zone by the Park and Zone Connect by the Park are in that 4-star space, but they have the essence of the park. So they have quirky design, but they have also food and beverage. When we started looking at the brand in I think 2009, 10, we said, okay, fine, let's put these hotels in smaller cities, but there is this whole pent up demand for food and beverage
Right.
and entertainment and places for people to have weddings and functions.
Right.
So we didn't want to do just a box with hotel rooms.
Yes.
We wanted more than that
Right.
and reflective of our
Right.
strengths. So that's a part of this division and of ASPHL. And we also then we have this brand called Flurries, which is a brand that actually started in 1927. You're celebrating 100 years next
Wow.
year. We have about 110 of those across
And it's
India.
coming to Delhi as well, right?
Absolutely. It's coming to Delhi NCR in the next 2 months.
Right.
So very exciting for us because our family bought this in 1965. The whole family has gone through um, working there, and it's a passion for all of us. Every pastry is dissected,
Right.
and very happy to take this 100-year legacy forward.
Fantastic.
So that's really the whole gamut of things.
Right.
Each brand has a particular identity and a story, and that's what we hopefully communicate to our customers.
Terrific. So I think you're also very passionate about sustainability.
Mhm.
And I think it's, as I've heard you saying, that it's not really an option, it's a necessity. And therefore, how are you integrating or building in sustainability and social responsibility practices into your hotel operations, whether it's wastewater management, whether it's community building, so on and so forth?
So that's a large question. So we actually started on this path when we built our hotel in Hyderabad, which was in 2010. So in 2010, that hotel was India's first LEED US Gold certified hotel.
Mhm.
So that was a long time ago. And then, of course, between COVID and everything happening, now all our hotels, and at that time it was a little difficult to have older hotels get certified and follow the practices. So what we've been doing now over the past 3 or 4 years is recertifying all our hotels, and even the older hotels, like say a Calcutta or a Vishakhapatnam, are getting onto that path of LEED certification. So that starts from building practices, things, and I think those are really essential for any modern buildings coming up. So that is one part of it. The the other part is really looking at our water consumption, electricity, waste management, and there is a very clear path at each hotel and for the company to achieve certain milestones by 2030.
Right.
So, like let's say we've started making sure all our passenger fleet is EV.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, so that started. I think that's 100% done.
Right.
On the certainly we give as benefits to team members, we give them cars. So now that exercise is on my table right now.
Right. Okay.
So we that is moving into that. I myself have had an
Moved to an
EV
EV
car.
car.
No, 4 years ago.
Okay.
So I was an early adopter. So I think it's important to also
Right.
live that. And I think that's nothing wrong. It's a good thing to do.
Right.
So we're on that path. So that's the sustainability part. And certainly the new builds that we're doing, we've got 4 or 5 new hotels happening. Those will also be LEED compliant and follow Indian IGBC or US from the start. On the community initiatives, I think a lot of what we've been doing is in women's empowerment and, of course, supporting groups in different
Sure.
cities wherever our operations are. One large project that we've been doing actually, which is now coming to a great state, is the Jantar Mantar, which is in New Delhi. And so we've been involved in that since 1991 because we've had different MOUs there. But now we have an interpretation center. The lighting is now redone and
Okay.
looking fantastic.
I
And
must visit that. It's been a
yes,
long
yes, you
time since I
must.
was.
It's a little bit hot outside, but so it's coming together
All right.
really well,
Right.
and I'm very happy with that. And that is also an interest because again, it's a maybe a when I moved to Delhi, I suddenly had this fantastic 18th century monument in front of us. I said, why is it all in
Yeah.
darkness?
Yeah.
So that's how the whole conversation started. So that why is this beautiful monument never lit up?
Right.
So now we do that. We're trying to go solar there so
Okay.
that we
Fantastic. Right.
wind can manage the costs too.
Right.
And so then that heritage part is also connected to the almost 3 or 4 maybe more heritage properties that we have in the park collection.
Right.
So one is of course Patiala, which
Yes.
everyone's read about and heard
Yes.
about a
Correct.
lot.
Absolutely.
Chettinad, we have
Chettinad, yeah,
something,
absolutely.
and then we have a heritage property in Kochi,
Right.
as well as one in Sirampur
Mm.
and Tranquil, which are 2
Okay.
Danish East India Company settlements. So
I need to visit some of these properties.
yeah, so you have to do a tour. So that's been interesting. So we got into like kind of adaptive reuse
Right.
of these heritage buildings, making them into good
Yeah.
hotels for people to come and stay.
Right. And you're actually bringing that experience to life, really.
Yeah.
And so let's just move into, you've not, even after having come so far, you've not rested on your laurels, right? You decided to take the Park Hotels public, right? One of the first women-led hospitality brand in India to hit the stock markets in 2024. Now, having achieved that, where do you see the next turn in this hospitality business? Where do you see the future of hospitality business? And what are some of the trends and opportunities that are shaping the sector?
So we had a very successful IPO, and I was thrilled to do that. It was actually something that was in the pipeline since 2007
Right.
when we took private equity. So we thought we'd go public much earlier. So we were on that path with corporate governance and everything in the right place. And so finally, when we started going down this path, there were, of course, COVID. and other things happened. So we finally went public in
Right.
2024. Great experience, and I think it's put the company on a different
Right.
pathway
Right.
to success. I mean, as I said, the corporate governance is very strong, but so is the growth story. So, as you mentioned, we have 46 hotels currently with approximately 3,000 rooms, and we're doubling that up by 2030. So, the pathway is really through our own assets that we are building out, because the 46 properties are owned properties, managed properties, as well as leased properties.
Right.
So,
Understand.
now the bulk of the growth in the park hotels is on a couple of management contracts, but the owned assets, we have a EM Bypass in Kolkata, a second hotel, which is 220 rooms and 69 apartments. The apartments have already been half sold, and we're building out that property, all the permissions. Vishakhapatnam, another 200 rooms, another 100 rooms in a new tower adjoining our plot. And we have Navi Mumbai, which is very close to the airport. So we have 80 rooms, but we're actually breaking that down and building a 250 to 300 room hotel to take
I'm
care of that
interested. I just
market.
took a flight from Navi Mumbai
Oh, so I
2
have
days
to try
back.
that. How was love to hear that experience. Yeah. And then we have another plot in Jaipur to
Right.
build. But the first really on the block is our property in Juhu. We were missing a property in
Yes.
Mumbai.
Correct. Yeah.
So we acquired a property last year. And once a couple of permissions are through, I think later this month,
That
we
was
start reconstructing that and launching that sometime the middle of next year. So there's a lot of activity on that, and we'll be finally in Mumbai, which is really a key market and where so many of our customers come from. So a lot of exciting developments, and I think I'm missing one property, but Pune. Yes, Pune is also a 200 room property in the process of permission. So we have this fantastic land bank, and that was also the reason to get into the public markets, to access capital, and to build this out and then build out the story of the hotel. On the zone by the park, we're again also doubling the number of properties. We're adding about 10 to 12. 10 to 12 are say signed for this year and going to open,
Sure.
and then a pipeline there. And for the park collection, we continue to look at interesting properties, and they have to be interesting.
Okay.
Then the other part of the growth is Flurries.
Yeah.
So which I mentioned, we're coming into Delhi NCR this year. Bombay, we'll strengthen our presence, and we hope to go into South India. So the idea is to add another 40 to 50 and take it up to 200 in the next couple of years. And the most exciting thing for us is to celebrate 100 years next year. So
Okay, fantastic.
that's going to be a big bang celebration, which we're already planning.
Awesome. Awesome. We're going to move to a slightly different section.
Yes.
We're going to do a little bit of a rapid fire.
Oh.
So quick questions, instant responses, right? You ready for it?
Yeah, why not?
The first thing you notice when you walk into a hotel as a guest and not as an owner?
Oh, as a guest, the lighting.
Lighting. Okay. A city that has influenced your design thinking the most?
I think London.
London. Okay. One misconception people have about running hospitality business?
That is easy.
A leadership lesson you learned the hard way but won't trade for anything?
I think a leadership lesson. Oh, that's it that I learned the hard way. Well, I think there's no substitute for actually knowing what you're doing. So in the sense, I think every time you're learning something new,
Right.
and you're learning, that's something that I've always liked to keep doing.
Right.
And I think you have to keep open to just those new ideas, whether it's from your team or whether it's from some vendor who's making a presentation on some very complex IT related thing, which then you just have to grapple and you ask questions and you do that. I don't know. Yeah.
Keep the learning alive, right?
Exactly.
If you weren't in hospitality, what would you be doing today?
Oh, this is a question I get answered, and I would have been a chef or
All right.
something on cooking and doing something fun with it.
Fantastic. One indulgence you would never compromise on, even on the busiest days?
I think a peaceful time for me to have a cup of tea and coffee for half an hour
Okay. Nice.
on my own.
Okay, so we're going to now bring this to a close. But if you were to give that one piece of advice to the younger Priya when she started her career, what would that be? And simultaneously, one piece of advice that you would give to the young entrepreneurs, especially women who are trying to make a mark in their journey, the professional journey.
So I think I was able to succeed because number one, I asked questions and I kept myself open to learning all the time, and that would be my advice to the younger other people, that you should keep exploring and keep learning. So I don't think your first, maybe you've started on the journey of becoming a doctor, but that doesn't mean you can't be a chef or something like that. So I think you have to explore what you enjoy doing, and you have to keep learning. So that's my advice to all young people, actually, women or men. And advice to the younger people, younger me is, um, have more fun.
You don't have enough fun?
I do. To the younger person, I would have.
Okay, all right.
To the younger one, now
Right.
I'm making up.
Right. Okay. Okay, been a fabulous conversation. I think the one thing that I took away from this, that Priya, as an individual, you have stood to your compass constantly, and you've developed the business, you've shaped it, you've challenged it. And I think one takeaway for all of us from this is also that you don't grow into leadership. Leadership grows you. So, Priya, thank you for sharing your perspective, your insights with clarity, with compassion, and really, it's been a fabulous conversation that we've had today. It's been a pleasure hosting you today.
Thank you so much, Naveen. Pleasure to talk to you.